What's the best Enduro bike in 2024? To find out, I put 8 of the latest and greatest Enduro machines through their paces. After weeks of testing, I finally narrowed it down to just 3. Those are the all-new Marin Alpine Trail XR, YT's Capra Core 4, and the Trek/8 Gen 6. As you'll soon see, although each of these machines has their own distinct character on the trail, picking a winner wasn't easy. But I did manage to, and here's how I came to my final conclusion. First off, let's talk about the frames. How does the old saying go? There's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Well, you only need to look at these 3 bikes here to see that there's certainly more than one way to build an Enduro machine. While pricing spans a cool £1,000 between the 3 bikes here, what's interesting is that only one frame is made from carbon fibre, and it's not the most expensive. The YT Capra, which has been around for a little while now, uses a carbon frame and YT's virtual 4-link suspension platform to dole out the 165mm of rear wheel travel. It also rolls on 29-inch wheels at the front and rear. Both the Trek/8 and the brand new Marin Alpine Trail XR use an alloy frame and come with mixed wheels as standard, but there are a few differences. The most obvious is the high pivot design on the Trek, the cheapest of our trio. This helps to give the Slash a more rearward axle path while it moves through its 170mm of rear wheel travel, all in a bid to better deal with momentum robbing square edge hits. If you want to learn more about high pivot suspension designs, then click on the card above. Like the YT, the new Alpine Trail XR boasts a 4-bar linkage suspension design. This is a big change for the California brand, who have been using a single pivot with a linkage actuated shock for many years now. They've also increased rear wheel travel from 150 to 160mm. Now let's talk through the numbers that matter. Both the YT and Trek have similar head angles at 63.9 and 63.4 degrees respectively. The Marin, in its slackest setting, which can be altered using supplied headset cups, is the most relaxed at 62.1 degrees. This helps produce a lengthy front centre of 825mm, longer than both the other bikes. All 3 sport steep seat tube angles for a comfortable, efficient pedalling position on the climbs. But again, the Marin stands out with its upright 79.6 degree effective seat tube angle. In terms of reach, there's only a few millimeters across these 3 medium-sized frames. The YT is the shortest, but only just at 447mm, while the Trek's reach is slightly longer at 448. Again, it's the Marin that boasts the lengthiest reach here at 454mm. Adjustments can be made to all 3 bikes using various flip chips too, or in the case of the Trek, additional aftermarket shock mounts and headset cups. But remember, slacker and longer doesn't always mean better, especially on bikes that need to handle a vast multitude of terrain. But what of the kit bolted to these lovely frames, I hear you cry? Well, each bike here has its flaws, but there's one that's harder to pick holes in than others, and that is the YT Capra. The YT is a mid-price option here, but even so, still sports top-level suspension from RockShox. Up front sits a 170mm travel Zeb Ultimate, paired with the latest Vivid Ultimate rear shock. Although a little pricier, the Marin includes the equivalent Zeb fork, but the Californian brand have opted for a supple Super Deluxe Ultimate coil rear shock to try and maximise rear wheel traction. As the cheapest option by some margin, the Slash/8 isn't treated to quite the same level of suspension dampers. A Fox 36 rhythm fork pumps out 170mm of travel and is controlled with their grip damper, which offers limited adjustment compared to the Charger 3 found in the 2 other forks here. At the rear, a Fox Flotex performance shock has been tuned incredibly well to manage the 170mm of travel. There's also a flip chip at the lower shock mount to adjust the progression levels if you want to fit a coil shock. Moving on to the drivetrain, and we can see YT and Marin duking it out for the top spot again in the Bling Factor Award. Both bikes use SRAM's GX Eagle Access transmission wireless gearing, which we know works well, especially when shifting under power. But the Trek shouldn't be underestimated here, thanks to the Shimano XT drivetrain, which is a real workhorse. To keep costs down, Trek have used the Dior crankset, but that's not exactly the end of the world. If you're dropping this kind of cash on a bike, you shouldn't need to change a single component on the bike, right? This isn't the case with the Trek, which comes with in-house brand Bontrager XR5 team issue tyres. Despite being fast rollers, they lack grip when you most need it, and I had to up the tyre pressures to prevent burping them during testing. To some extent, it was a similar story with the Marin, but only because they've included a Maxxis assegai at the rear in the 3C Max Grip compound. Paired with the same tyre up front, rolling speed isn't something that comes naturally to the Alpine Trail XR, and I did switch the rear tyre for the bulk of testing to combat this. YT have done a sterling job in the tyre department, including a favourite combo of mine, with the Maxxis assegai up front and the Minion DHR2 at the rear. They've gone for the 3C Max Grip rubber compound at the front and the faster rolling 3C Max Terra compound at the rear, in both the tough double down casings. Love it. Now for the wheels. The priciest bike here, the Marin, comes with own brand rims and hubs. The free hub engagement is a little lackluster and quite gappy, which is noticeable when accelerating out of slow speed turns, which is a shame considering the price. Trek also call upon their in-house parts brand Bontrager for wheels. These, however, offer a quicker pickup than those on the Marin. Although the Capra sits in the middle in terms of pricing, it includes the highly regarded Crank Brothers Synthesis Enduro alloy hoops, which feel great on the trail. Free hub engagement could be better, but overall, the feel is really impressive. Finally, a quick word on brakes. The SRAM code brakes found on both the Marin and the YT may be a little flashier and more appealing than the Shimano brakes found on the Trek. But the power and punch and lever feel on the Shimano stoppers shouldn't be underestimated, especially on steeper, longer trails where they really come into their own. Where does that leave us in terms of value then? Well, all three bikes excel in certain spec areas, though I think it's fair to say the direct-to-consumer YT comes out on top if we're looking at bang for your buck. Of course, measurements, angles and component details only paint part of the picture. While everything I've already talked about will give you some idea of how the bikes perform, it's time on the trail that really counts. To unlock all the fun bits of your ride, you need to suffer up the climbs first. Due to the three different personalities of our trio, that suffering comes in varying degrees. Surprisingly, it was the big travel high pivot Trek that made its way up the hills with the least amount of fuss. The comfy seated position works in harmony with the stable back end, which stays spookily still when sat down and grinding away at the pedals. It helps that the tyres roll at a decent speed and don't feel too draggy, but point it up a steep pitch, caked in mud, and the rear traction is often somewhat lacking. At the other end of the spectrum is the Marin. While it's only marginally heavier than the Trek at 17.37 kilos, the Max Grip rubber compound tyres used at the front and rear slow progress and sap energy on long drags. Swapping for a firmer compound tyre certainly makes life easier without limiting grip. Like the Trek, the super steep seat angle helps to keep you comfy, even if you're suffering more on the Alpine Trail XR than the others here. The YT feels almost as easygoing as the Trek, and compared to the Capra Core 4 we tested last year, which used a different rear shock, feels calmer under power, bobbing less and sitting higher in its travel. Its seated position is comfortable and efficient too, so dealing with lengthy ascents never felt unpleasant. So that's how they go uphill, but how do our contenders fare when being pointed down the trail? On flatter, slower tracks, the YT feels immediately comfortable and almost excitable as it ducks in and out of turns, accelerating up to speed and maintaining it with relative ease. While its geometry might not be one for the record books, the middle ground they've achieved with these stats ensures nimbleness when needed, but still offers confidence as and when the pace does pick up. Trek have nailed the tune of the Fox Float-X shock on the Slash, providing a lively and playful feel to this big hitter. As such, and thanks again to those fast rolling tyres, slower tech trails or mellow flow lines are ridiculously fun to rip down, bouncing from obstacle to obstacle. The Marin, on the other hand, needs more muscle on shallower gradients. The supple suspension, tacky tyres and gappy free hub make it hard work getting back up to pace when navigating slow speed turns. Get the Marin onto something steeper or faster and it soon makes way more sense. This thing is an unapologetic downhill machine. Its slack front end and lengthy wheelbase give it all the stability you could wish for, while the low bottom bracket gives you the confidence to commit to a turn and hold your speed as you rip through it. As things get rougher, the Alpine Trail continues to impress, with the 160mm of rear wheel travel doing an admirable job of smoothly soaking up the impacts. This is matched with the impressive performance of the Zeb up front. Point the Marin into a rock garden and you can just hold on and let it go to work. It's a similar story with the Trek too. That high pivot does a great job of scalping the peaks of the ugliest square edge hits, helping you to stay on line and completely composed at speed. As you push the Trek, the fork starts to get a little flustered. Yes, the grip damper is superbly comfortable, but really start hammering the slash and you quickly realise you need to start compensating with higher spring pressures to create more support through the front end. The balancing act between comfort and support is a tricky one that takes time to master. I also had to up the Trek's tyre pressures to prevent burping them at high load turns, which was a little frustrating. A better set of tyres would really unlock even more potential here. While both the Trek and Marin have more obvious pros and cons, the YT simply showed fewer weaknesses, no matter what trail or the conditions. Sure, it's not the longest, slackest, or even lowest, but it still works just about everywhere and consistently performs well in every situation and in every location. On steep, tight trails, the Capra's Copra is a confident place to be. While it's a dab hand at maintaining traction and stability, it's still reactive and precise enough to be quickly and easily shifted from one line to the next. At speed, on rough bike park style tracks, the balanced, composed nature of the Capra really comes to the fore. But even so, there's never a shortage of fun, and when I wanted to throw it around sideways, jump or skip around on the trail, I could. But get trucking into something truly ugly and it'll skim through without hesitation, carrying momentum without ever feeling harsh or uncomfortable. If I was being really picky, I'd say lighter riders might benefit from a lighter compression tune in the shock though. So which bike takes home the top honours in 2024? As ever, picking a winner of these three was seriously tough, made even harder by the performance of all of the other bikes in this category. Both the Marin and Trek are real characters and shined in certain situations. The Trek's a seriously smooth operator and seriously impressive for the cash, but swap the tyres and get the fork tuned to optimise performance. The Marin might not be the sprightliest or best all-rounder, but with gravity on its side, this thing is like a flamboyant party animal reluctant to leave the dance floor. When it came down to it though, the YT Capra Core 4 had the edge, quietly disposing of track after track with a calmness and pace that few could rival, no matter what the terrain. While this was a top 3 bike last year, the spec changes and the price drop for 2024 have helped the Capra Core 4 clinch the top honours this year. Do you agree with my winning Enduro bike of 2024? Let us know in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe and click the little bell icon so you're always notified every time we release a new video. And if you want more Enduro bikes, then check out this video.